NFR Extra follows all your favorite cowboys, interviews legends of rodeo, and talks to the best of country music. Follow Nevada Caldwell, Ryland Bentley, and Steve Godert every week as they delve deep into the stories behind the road to gold in Vegas at the National Finals Rodeo. It's revealing, comedic, and sometimes emotional. Find it on Spotify or anywhere you listen to podcasts. NFR Extra. All dirt, all rodeo, all year.
Have you ever heard the story about, how Stephen King came up with it? He had written a few books. The movie Carrie came out, and he had, success, but he didn't have an idea for a new book, and he was living in Boulder, so his wife said, just get lost in the mountains for a week. So he drove around, stopped Stanley, and within 2 days, he had this vision of it being a haunted house or a haunted hotel, and that's how it got started.
NFR Extra, episode 103. Mark Purdy from Rooftop Rodeo takes us on a Rocky Mountain journey. He talks about the challenges of preparing for a rodeo in less than 60 days, going to new heights with Cervi Rodeo, the Cowboy Channel elevating rodeo, and scaring it up a bit with Stephen King.
They're just talking about this year, man, has been pretty damn awesome for rodeo because of Cowboy Channel. Being able to watch all the rodeos, man, has been pretty damn awesome. And I think this is the expectation of not worrying about it being a zillion cameras covering it. You just get to see rodeo. You've never been able to do that, right? Prior to this, I'm assuming for you guys that are rodeo, live it, correct?
I think it goes exactly in what you just said. It's the accessibility more than anything. It's never been an opportunity ever. It's like when social media came out and you could talk to your friends all of a sudden, all the time, at one time. The same thing that's happening with rodeo right now is you now have the ability to follow along with those individuals all year long instead of the 4 big rodeos.
For me, being a big sport fan, with other sport or other pro sports, and you see the interaction, right, of a game happening, say for instance NFL on a Sunday, and then right after that you'll see whatever happened in there, whatever the drama was or the moments and things like that. A lot of that plays out on social with fans, and occasionally some of the athletes diving in there, kind of that they were watching the event, or even other pro sport athletes watching it. Kind of seeing that now on Instagram with Cowboy Channel and PRSA, now that they're able to get all those assets out, right? All these rides, you're seeing people comment on things oh man, that was Tyson Durfee, or whatever. And then, you get all the social ambassadors, the Fallon Taylors of the world. And she's an athlete too, but you just get all these people interacting within this content world that did not exist from my understanding.
I think it kind of plays into the fact that you can be a fan now. Before, unless that one individual was sharing all the content or videos on their social, to be a fan and follow along all year long was almost near impossible. So unless that individual was extremely active, where now you don't necessarily need that activity from social. While yes, I think the contestants are more active on social, you can still follow along at the rodeo and see the difference in the competitions and understand. I think there's a better understanding of the different rodeos too, because you see a 7-7 at one rodeo and then you see a 10-6 at another. If you don't understand the arena is a completely different setup, you're thinking, well, why was he at 10-7, 10-6 when he was just 7-7 last week? That's a bad score. So for an individual who doesn't know rodeo, I think it gives them the opportunity to start understanding it at a better.
How did you guys get your rodeo stuff, if you will, prior to these kind of things starting to happen a little better with social and, highlights out there, maybe their wives or some friend film? How did you get it? Steve, Brylan, how did you get your rodeo, your updates, I guess, is really what I'm trying to say?
A magazine that came once a month.
Really?
ESN. Yep.
Whoa.
That was it. And that was still, even dude, the crazy part is too, as far as trying to figure out who these guys are. So you can sometimes still see a name, maybe somebody that you've never even heard of, is from a different circuit or some up and comer that's all of a sudden kicking ass. And you're who is this guy?
Yeah.
So it's, it's not you can just click on the deal or click on the bio or click on whatever, and it comes up with these stats. So it was definitely a lot more homework.
Damn.
Back in the day.
Yeah.
Than there is now.
Well, and now you think about it, you see a highlight ride the cowboy, whoever that cowboy is, typically tagged in it. So you go to their page and you can see like how they've been active throughout the year, what rodeos they were hitting. At that point, if you really wanted to dive into this, you can go into Cowboy Channel now and go watch some of those rodeos to see the rides or see the other rides that were happening that night. Like, you now just have the ability to do the research and dig deeper, where before you read the article, you understood that they did really good at this rodeo and that was that. And maybe where they're at in the world standings. And that was if they're top 15, mind you, because at one point you didn't have top 50 actively on this website that you could just go look at. You were just looking at the top 15 in that event when it came out. And that was month to month, not week to week. So your standings shifting and those things were changing all the time versus
that sounds really archaic.
Rodeo has grown, I would say, more in the last 5 years than it did in the 20 before that.
You know, what I've been seeing on our social side is that interaction piece, that it's starting to come together a little better. As a fan of sports and fan of multimedia, I think this is what rodeo needed, was the ability to bring it all together without worrying about it being so produced, I guess. Because that's always everyone's problem. I think it's got to be, you know, like the 90s and millions of cameras and super microphones.
And I think just in the last year, like since this started, like the production has come far, like tremendous changes compared to like the first streaming that happened, but it takes time. I think it goes back to, it gives the fan an ability to stay hooked. Like for football, you can watch, you watch every Sunday, every Monday, you follow your team on social, you follow the players, you do all these things, where rodeo was kind of missing that one element of interactive. You go to your rodeo in your small town and then that was it. You followed maybe the guy that won it there, but that was it, right? Like you had to, it was just kind of the wall you hit, where now you get to kind of jump in and keep swimming.
Is the Cowboy Channel on at your home? I mean, because Pops, lived it. Yeah, I would imagine.
I don't know that it's necessarily Pops, but it definitely is myself, and my dad joins in for the Bulls typically, but typically on, I would say 5 nights a week. I mean, I think the funnest thing is like you get to actually keep up with that contestant that you were interactive with, right? Like whether it was our friend, whether it's a family friend, like you just kind of get to follow along everyone all year long instead of following that one person that you know on their Facebook. You just have access to all of it to understand the competition better.
Enjoy our conversation with Mark Purdy, chairman of Rooftop Rodeo. Listen to the end for Last Call with Steve and his good buddy, NFR announcer Andy Seiler on NFR Extra.
Finding your custom NFR experience in Las Vegas just got a lot easier. New this year is a resource that links you to every hotel offer. At nfrexperience.com/stay your way, you can shop for the hotel that best fits your plans. Everything is there. Information on viewing parties, concerts, price, transportation, location, and so much more. All in one place. Go to nfrexperience.com/stay your way. One Vegas. Stay your way.
This is Stetson Wright, 3-time world champion, right here on NFR Extra.
Estes Park's annual Rooftop Rodeo is a PRCA-sanctioned event recognized many times over as the best small rodeo in the nation and a must-experience for summer rodeos. Rooftop Rodeo has nightly professional rodeo performances that deliver non-stop rip-roaring cowboy action with world-class stock from PRCA Hall of Fame stock contractor Cervi Championship Rodeo. Going back 90 years, most of what is known about rodeo in Estes Park comes from articles in the first newspaper, The Mountaineer, and later the Estes Park Trail. The term rodeo was not used in the United States until 1912. Before that, rodeo-type events were associated with community celebrations. The earliest reference to a rodeo-type celebration in Estes Park was recorded in the Mountaineer in 1908. We find out why Rooftop Rodeo sits atop the rodeo industry for the past 90 years. Mark Purdy, welcome to NFR Extra, sir. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having us on. It's a pleasure talking to you folks.
Yeah, we've been trying to get a lot of you top-notch folks that run rodeos throughout the country, and it's been a good problem having a tough time getting you on this past year because you all been busy compared to last year where it seemed like we could get a lot of people on our podcast a lot last year. But this year it's been super challenging. timing seems to be everything up there in Estes Park. Man, how was this whole year? You seem like, were you the first event for your area and everything that went on? I mean, how did everything culminate this 2021 for Rooftop Rodeo?
Yeah, we started our normal time, December, January, and our, intense planning. We tend to work on 9 or 10 months out of the year, but so we started like normal, knowing that it wasn't going to be normal. And our biggest issue that we had throughout the early planning months was just how many folks we could actually have in the arena if we did have a rodeo. And for the longest time, that was 25%. And there's just no way you can put on an event with 25%, paid attendance. So that was the biggest obstacle we had to go up and down on. And then to your other part of that question, yeah, we were the first big event up here in Estes Park. We typically start in early May with events every weekend, and then they'll go up through October. But just because of the health and all the other securities they were doing, we were literally the first event on July 5th. So that was kind of exciting and nerve-wracking at the same time.
Just like everyone else has had their challenges put on these events, I mean, how can you kind of walk us through because I think I was reading you went from, and similar to what we did here in Vegas, where it was like, okay, it's 25%, then it's 50%, then it's 80%, then it's,
sure,
hit the throttle. How did you, because you guys do, how many people do you usually anticipate come to your event every year?
We can seat about 2,200 a night, and we're a 6-night rodeo. So I mean, we usually, for 90% of that, we're really happy. This year we were not quite 100% of it, but we were pretty darn close. There was a couple nights we actually had to close the gates early because we were sold out. But as far as navigating through those months ahead, it was, like I said, we kept saying, okay, 25% we can't do it. 50% is going to be really tough. The other side of that is, we're very much a tourist-based economy up here. So a lot of our sponsorships come from, hotels or bars, restaurants, whatever the case might be. And they just got, creamed last year from a business perspective. So we were very cautious about approaching a lot of them, but we were also blessed that the ones that did. And we picked up a lot of new sponsors this year too because of that. But in April, we were sitting at less than half of our normal sponsorship sign up. And that was a scary thing too, because now you're looking at not only your costs are going to stay the same with the stock contractor and the added money and all that, but, we had half the revenue to try to figure that out. So that was the biggest puzzle piece we had. And then on May 4th is when Colorado rolled back their rules and let us go 100%. And once we got to that point, we knew we were good to go. So we really hit the throttle on May 4, but we'd been working on it for months before that.
That's not a whole lot of time, from May 4th to July 5. That's jammed up. And granted, you have some time in between, your previous event. For a lot of people, it was a matter of months. For others, it was a matter of a couple of years. So talk a little bit about your format change and your contestant entries, if you could, Mark.
Sure. We just didn't know what to expect from a crowd and sponsorship point of view, but I think we always had that gut feeling that our contestant count was going to be up, and it was. We set a record with that. If you go back 5 years ago, we were on a good year. We had 475 contestants throughout the 6 nights of our rodeo. And that it quickly went from 475 to 600 to 700. This year we had 830 contestants entered. Now they didn't all show up, obviously, with turnouts and so forth, but we knew that component was going to be strong. We've always been really blessed with getting a lot of the top contestants in the country. I haven't seen the final numbers yet this year, but in 2019, I think we had over 130 NFR contestants and about at least a couple dozen world champions at one point competing up here. So we're really, really proud of that. And then, we also are a real big staple on the Mountain State circuit here. And, like to work with a lot of those folks too. So that was never the issue. It was always just the revenue on the other side and trying to get all that put together.
You're talking about the smaller sponsorships and people that were coming to the table. It's crazy when you start thinking about putting on a big event over that big stretch of a period to where you lose $500 sponsorships. That adds up really quick, and just how that trickles down. So what about the format of your rodeo?
So, so this year we tried something a little different. We went out of traditional, classic 7 event lineup and decided to alternate. Each event was a rough stock event. So we actually started out with a round of bulls this year, which we've never done. And then we went in, did another event, and we had another rough stock event and so forth. And then we ended with bulls also.
Okay.
And what we found was it got the energy level of the crowd up something fierce by doing it that way. Our stock contractor, Binion Cervi, had suggested that he'd actually had done that at a couple other rodeos before they showed up here. And I'm so glad we did it. It's a format we're going to keep.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's impressive. Sometimes, especially with this and how rodeo goes on, it's kind of the same thing with the ranchers, that have been, well, shoot, that's the way we've done it for 115 years. It's like, well,
exactly.
I know.
Yeah.
That was back when we were using smoke signals and pigeons to communicate too. And we've got cell phones
Right.
now. So don't be afraid to change it up. So that's that sort of forward thinking is pretty impressive.
Well, thank you. We've never been afraid to make changes. We've always kind of been on that bleeding edge of, trying to make sure we keep the rodeo fresh. And we've never been afraid to try new things or, even on the business side of it. So it keeps things exciting for us. That's for sure.
I want to talk about the contestants' experience within Estes Park, because I have seen pictures of this arena and where you guys are located, and it is absolutely stunning. But you guys had a pretty impressive payout this year. Could you touch on that a little bit?
We're very proud of our setting. I think I can honestly say we have the most beautiful arena on earth, just because of the backdrop of Rocky Mountain National Park and so forth. And as far as, the experience we try to give contestants from the time they come through our back gate to the time they leave, we call it our Disney experience. We actually have a couple people who've worked for Disney in the past. And so we really want to make sure they feel like they're appreciated and take care of them. I think we have some of the better hospitality, food, and that kind of thing, on the circuit too. So we really take care of the contestants. And then, as far as payout goes, up until about 6 or 7 years ago, we were a small scale rodeo, which, as you folks know, that's dictated by the amount of added money you have. And we were one of the first rodeos in the country to pay both ends of the team roping. And that small difference put us out of the small category and put us into the mid-size. So we went from being the largest small to the very smallest mid. And so, I kind of handicapped this as far as the purse goes. So we had a couple opportunities to raise it. Now I think we went from 21,000 to just a little below 70,000 in added money. And you can't spend more than 70 and still be a mid-size. And we have no intention to ever go up to large scale. So that helped get it started. And then, of course, the more contestants you have, they start out with the 70,000 and then their entry fees build that pot up pretty big. And I haven't seen the final number yet, but I think we were right about 175,000 this year in total payout. We're really, really proud of that number.
Cowboy Christmas in July, the dates that you have chosen to produce this rodeo for the PRCA Cowboys, how does that go into consideration when you guys choose these dates?
Sure. Well, we've always had a mid-July rodeo. That's been part of it. And the town of Estes Park, who, by the way, I need to point out, the town actually owns the Rooftop Rodeo. And then our nonprofit committee, Estes Park Western Heritage Inc., are the ones that are with the boots on the ground and are the true committee, if you will, from a PRCA perspective. So we probably do 90-95% of the boots on the ground work and planning and all that. And then the town, still has the control of the arena and that kind of thing. So that's an important piece of it right there.
Hey, real quick, I'd touch on that because I was doing some research on Estes Park, the Western Heritage group that you're with. There was other events that you guys usually do prior to Rooftop Rodeo. What exactly does this group do and responsible for? And there's other cooler events, I think, that I read that you guys take care of as well throughout the year. Is that right?
Yeah, over the years, we've done various things. So the rodeo committee historically, up until about a dozen years ago, was actually a town committee. So if I wanted to help the rodeo, I had to go and apply for the town committee and so forth. And then we realized over time that was kind of cumbersome. If we could break away and have our own standalone committee, it was easier to do some fundraising and that kind of thing too. So that's how we really got started. And then our charter was to not only help the Rooftop Rodeo, but to promote the Western style of life that a lot of people come to Colorado to experience. So that was really the genesis of it. And over the years, we've done other events like you indicated. We've done some PBR events. We had a really nice barrel racing series for about 5 or 6 years. On the other side of that, we've done some fun things to raise money for our scholarship fund. We had a whiskey tasting event up here for about 3 years that brought people in from all over the country. And then we had a Western art show that was very successful also. And then this last year, we had a lot of fun. Jack Daniels is one of our sponsors, and I meet with them every year out there in Vegas during the PRCA, and they've been trying to get us to buy one of their barrels, a single barrel. So we did that and sold the bottles and raised about $5,000 for our scholarship program. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Steve.
I've been doing a whiskey tasting for about 15 years now, but it's not been profitable for me or anybody that I know. But
do you invite people, or is this just like
no? It's just it's an individual basis. So.
There you go. Well, good.
Yeah.
You all peaked up when you brought up the whiskey tasting. That was for sure.
Hey, yeah. Mark, how many people are on your committee that are constantly kind of doing the year-round work?
It's a squishy number. We have about 60 people that are actually on our committee. And it's kind of the 80-20 rule. Just because it's time throughout the year. There's about a dozen of us that work, year-round on it. And then everybody else pitches in when they can. And then come rodeo week, that number doubles to about 120. And I always tell people, we have to have both ends of the spectrum. We have to have the people that will work year-round on it, but we also need the person that can only show up a night or two during the week of rodeo. All those pieces go together, and then everything in between. So, people are really good about doing what they can when they can. But that's a number that people are always stunned by, because we're very good friends with a lot of the other rodeo committees in, the Colorado, Wyoming area. And even rodeos that are half our size have double the people that put it on. But on the other hand, we're a pretty nimble group, and we can make changes whenever we need to quickly. So that helps a lot too. It's fun, like this year we've got the longest running relationship in the PRCA between committees between us and Cheyenne. We've been swapping committees since the 1930s. And so we know those folks really well. And whenever they come down, I've talked to their people a little bit about it. There's a little bit of envy that, they're so big. It's sort of like moving a steamship out in the ocean, trying to get it to turn around. And we're kind of that little speedboat out there moving around too. So it makes for interesting times, that's for sure.
You're listening to NFR Extra with our guest, Mark Purdy, chairman of Rooftop Rodeo. Let's take a quick break. NFR Extra follows cowboys, talks to legends and country stars, and finds the stories that make up the season that leads to the annual showdown in December. Follow me, Nevada Caldwell, Rylan Bentley, and Steve Goder as we delve deep into the stories in and behind the road to gold. Listen to NFR Extra on Rural Radio, channel 147 on SiriusXM every Monday at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 Eastern, with a re-air Tuesday in the same time slot. NFR Extra, all dirt, all rodeo, all year.
Hey y'all, it's Lainey Wilson, singer-songwriter in Nashville, and I'm here with NFR Extra.
Mark Purdy here on NFR Extra.
94 years of rodeo. Can you touch a little bit on the history that has gone into making this possible?
Yeah, it's funny. For some reason, we had a minor controversy here in town about when it actually got started and so forth this year. It was more fun than anything. But about 10 years ago, one of our ex-chairmen spent a lot of time developing that number. So we started in, 1926 is the official date the PRCA has for us. And we've run just about every year, although there was a couple of years, obviously, like in World War II, that they didn't run. And then, of course, we didn't have it last year during COVID. but it's really, over the years, it's been, one of the centerpieces of Estes Park summer. We're so busy that 4th of July week or whatever, that it's hard to say that we draw extra people to town just for the rodeo. But on the other hand, it gives everybody something to do. A fun statistic, about 60 to 70% of our fans that come to our rodeo have never been to a rodeo in their life.
Wow.
They just happen to be in Estes Park, or, more importantly, Rocky Mountain National Park, which pulls in about 4 to 5 million people a year. They're just looking for something fun to do from, a Western experience. And at last count, we had almost 40 foreign countries that had visited our rodeo. So it's different. I've had people from the PRCA come up and just kind of marvel at the demographics we have. People just come from all over for it. So that makes it a lot of fun.
That is definitely an impact of a demographic.
The other thing we started about 8 or 10 years ago, we've actually given presentations on it out at the PRCA, but we started a behind the shoots program, and we're really proud of that. And every night we have about 50 folks. It takes about a half hour, 40 minutes, and we walk them around the whole arena area. They get to meet, sometimes they meet our clown Justin, or they talk to our announcer Andy, or Jimmy Lee's one of our bullfighters, and they meet him. But then we actually take them up on the dance floor behind the pen, so they get really up close and personal with some of the livestock, and they just love that. We show them a flank strap, and it's a really proactive way to make sure they understand that the animals are really well taken care of, and that they really truly live for this, for their sport. And I'm really proud of what we've been able to accomplish with that program.
A lot of folks have been in the business for a while, and if you go back to where things seem to shift with Vegas, and the NFR and the new talent that came on board there with guys like Boyd Paul Hemus and just kind of the whole new universe, and now we're into this transition going into this next young talented group, and you just grazed over a couple of names there, but I think you have a few of them over there. You have the Andy Seiler, and Justin Rumford, and then Hambone. From a production standpoint. So it sounds like you have that young group that is really starting to move up the rodeo chain, if you will, that really impacts that. How is having that group, how has that helped your production and kind of what you've seen over the years, where you went from maybe like an older school kind of style things with this new group that's got a little bit more progressive thinking to them?
It's been incredible, and I have to give all props to Benny and Cervi for doing that. When we brought Benny and his team on board, he's the one that suggested these folks. He said, "Hey, I'll keep your existing contract personnel if you want them, but here's some other things you might want to think about." It's funny when you talk about the Andy Seiler. Benny said, "I've got this young guy. He hasn't done many rodeos yet, but I think he's an up and comer." So we brought him in. We fell in love with him. Fell in love with his family. I always tell people that Andy wasn't even old enough to drink that first year he came to town, and now he's been here for 5 or 6 years, and we love him. And I was just tickled pink that he got chosen to do the WNFR last year. That was just such a feather in his cap, and he was just so tickled to do that. But and then Justin has been a great addition to our rodeo over the years. We always kind of thought, well, maybe we should alternate some entertainment over the years, maybe have Justin every other year, somebody else. And then it hit me, and I don't know, it took me about years to get to this point, but it hit me how important the dynamic between the announcer and the clown really is. We brought Justin up here 8 or 9 years ago, and I'm not talking behind his back because I told him this, but the first time he'd already won 1 or 2 awards, and I didn't think he was very funny. And that's because he worked with our then, announcer we had for a while, and they never worked together. Well, then 2 weeks later, I go down to Dodge City, and he's with Boyd, and he's just hilarious. So that's when it hit me that that's a very important dynamic you don't want to mess with. Then Hambone, we love having him here. He's the best in the business, in my opinion, from a musical point of view. We were really tickled. We picked up Sonny Dub Beckstrom this year as our secretary. And that was, you can't beat that. I mean, to your point, you look around and say, well, we have every bit of firepower as most of the big rodeos do. So very proud of that fact.
Mark, I am going to call Andy right now and tell him that his contract is up for negotiations, just to make his heart beat out of his chest.
We actually typically in the past, the Rooftop has always just paid the stock contractor to turnkey it. They bring in their own personnel, their own announcer, and we over the years, and that last time we brought Benyon in, we reserved the right to make those changes, and so we actually have Andy under contract. And last year was supposed to be the first year of a new 5-year contract. And then he ends up getting the NFR gig, and I called him up and said, okay, I'm really happy for you. I'm really proud of you. You still got to be in Estes Park for the next 5 years in July.
Yeah.
And he just laughed, but because we really were one of the first ones to help him out.
Yeah, Andy's one of my closest friends. I bought 2 horses from him this year. He came and stayed with us for a week. So I say that with tongue in cheek of it. I have nothing but pure endearment for Andy Seiler.
Sure. Well, let's face it. He looks like he's 20. And we'd always have our saloon guys carding it, and every time we walked in for beer after the rodeo. And then I got to know his family really well, not only his wife and wonderful kids, but his folks and stuff. And it's just a neat story all the way around. But
they're great.
This year, I called Andy up and said, "Hey, how do you feel about heights?" He goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, are you scared of heights?" He goes, "Not really." "Why?" He goes, "I'll get back to you." I ended up taking Miss Rodeo America, Miss Rodeo Colorado, and Andy up a 400-foot cliff. We spent about half a day, and they just giggled the whole way up. It was wonderful. So.
Andy's lying to you. He's afraid of heights because he's only 5'7". So that's,
he's average. Be nice, Steve.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you guys know the folks in Dodge City very well, Doc and some of the other guys, but they come out to our rodeo every year too, and they have Boyd down there, and Doc likes to kind of poke the bear with Boyd a little bit and say, "Yeah, I think that's his park, and listen to that young guy, Andy Seiler, and he's really good." So, if you know the relationship between Boyd and Andy, very much the mentor, and been a wonderful influence on him. And but it's just the other thing I love about the whole group we have here, and it's because of the Cervis, is just the camaraderie they have. They're all like brothers. So that always means they're always giving each other some grief or pulling pranks on each other or whatever, but it's just really fun to watch. And it just makes the week go so quickly. As far as the change that we did with stock contractors, we actually gave a presentation out at the NFR or out of PRCA one year, how to survive a stock contractor change. And went on for about a half hour. I'd be glad to send you the presentation. I've shared it with a lot of committees, and I actually had people coming up to me afterwards with their business cards. We were in the same boat. We've been with the same guy for 20 years, and we're afraid to, even bring up the idea that it might change. And it was like, it's your money. It's your business. You have to do what's best for it.
That's what's so crazy too. And the part that you put on that, as far as like, this is our rodeo and this is the direction that you want to go, but you get these stock contractors that come in there and they, and it's their livelihood. So I fully understand that, but as opposed to working as a partnership that's beneficial for both sides, they get to where they kind of strong arm, because in those committees, you have new chairmen and new boards and new committee members. So that's something that is really, not that you want to take away from anybody, but when you get somebody that's telling you how to run your household, it's like, maybe let's reassess this program.
And it's funny. I've probably given Benyon 3 or 4 references in the past, and he's got all 3 or 4 of those committees. And the one thing that strikes true every time I talk to somebody, they just got Sykeston and Eagle here last couple years ago. And the opening conversation with both of them was, why'd you make the change? And said, because they understood it's our rodeo. And man, they all go, "You've got to be kidding. He actually thinks that?" I said, "Well, yeah. Of course he does."
Yeah. Good for him. That's great.
This is NFR Extra, and our guest today, Mark Purdy.
December in Vegas. What does that mean? It's time for the Wrangler NFR and the Cowboy Channel Cowboy Christmas, the ultimate shopping and entertainment experience. Catch live shows on the Ariat Rodeo Live Stage, the Yeti Junior World Finals, autograph sessions, and much more. Open daily with free admission at the Las Vegas Convention Center. Visit NFRExperience.com for details. The Cowboy Channel Cowboy Christmas. It's all here.
I'm Jake Finlay, joining you on NFR Extra.
Mark Purdy is here on NFR Extra.
Talk about the Cervi group getting involved with you, because it sounds like that definitely helped this whole organization turn a corner and give you a little bit more spotlight on what you do as a rodeo. Can you kind of touch on the impact and how that all went down? And
you bet, absolutely. So, I indicated earlier, guys, that the town of Estes Park owns the Rooftop Rodeo, so they actually pay for the bigger things like the stock contractor and so forth. And every 5 years, that contract has to come up for renewal. That's your procurement. And so back in 2014, we had just gotten done with the stock contractors that we've been working with for years and had good luck with them. But we really wanted to open it up and see what else was out there. We had a couple ideas of, where we wanted to go. And I remember Benyon called me the day after we released the RFP, and he says, "Mr. Purdy, are you guys serious about a change, or is it just like every 5 years where you're just sending it out there and not making a change?" And I said, "Ben, all I can tell you is we're dead serious about looking at all of our options. I can't promise you we're going to change." And they came in, and I think the biggest thing is when they came in, they made it clear that they understood that we own the rodeo, that they work for us. And that is such an important point, when you're a committee or a town trying to put it on, to make sure that, you maintain the flavor where you want it to go. So when he came in, like, we talked about earlier, he brought in all this wonderful, personnel on the stock contract, or like the contract side. And, Cervi's very, very well known for their rough stock. So we literally, the first year, we literally went from 475 in 2014 on contestants to well over 600. I think we were in the high sixes that first year. And it was mostly all rough stock. And he promised us that we would have, a full rough stock slate, as much as we could every night. And sure as heck he has. I think the first year we only had 4 turnouts the whole week, and 3 of them were medical. So that made all the difference in the world. Even though we have a kind of a rookie crowd, if you will, that's never been to a rodeo, they know that if you only have 2 people and you're bareback one night, or 3 in the saddle one night, that's not right, because the other events have 14. And we haven't had that problem since. So they just brought a whole new level of production to us. And, the mentality, we work together incredibly well. He's always got great suggestions. He usually gets his way, but he's very good diplomatically about explaining why we should consider something. And it's just worked out great. So we just re-upped him again for another 5 years last year. And, as long as I'm involved, I don't see us ever making a change. It's been great.
That's cool. It's good to hear other communities, and however big or however small you are, growing and finding new ways to evolve your business and create more traffic coming to your community and obviously bringing money to the town and thriving.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
The pandemic really forced everybody's hand at that. I'm in the financial advising business here in town, and I have a lot of small businesses that are my clients. And, everybody had to retool themselves last year. I don't care if you were the smallest or the biggest, and if you look around in our industry, in the rodeo industry, everybody had to retool. I was at a symposium in early May with the guys from Cheyenne, and, they had to retool as much as we did. And, but over time, you just have to keep getting fresh ideas. And, let's face it makes it more fun for our committee. They're very hardworking. I'm really proud of everybody. But it's always fun. We can break it up a little bit and have some new ideas come in. Last night at rodeo, I was up in our VIP section talking to some sponsors, and somebody asked me about, how we felt about, finally being able to pull it off. And I said, in a weird way, this is by far the most gratifying week of rodeo I've ever been involved with, just because of all the roadblocks and everything else that we had, to get here. And then they go, does that mean you wish it was still going on? I said, oh, hell no.
Yeah.
we had 6 nights. We're quite good, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, going off that, and I'm big on, being here in Vegas, we have a ton of venues. I love the intimate side when you can have, just enough to where it makes that intimate side, and to have that group working with that intimate crowd.
And then the other thing that happened this year, we put all 6 nights on TV with the Cowboy Channel. And we were one of the early adopters of the Wrangler Network, I don't know, 6 or 8 years ago. And just to tell you how much times have changed, we would have the Wrangler Channel come out on Saturday night, our last night of rodeo, which is also obviously our biggest night. And it also is our pink event night, where we raise money for, the hospital breast cancer unit. But anyway, we had to pay Wrangler $2,000 a year just to come out for that one day. And we felt it was good exposure, and everything was great. Well, then when we started talking to the Cowboy Channel over the winter, she said, we'd like broadcast. I'm thinking, well, what night do you want to come up? She goes, oh, it'd be all 6 nights. I go, I don't know if we can afford all 6 nights. And she goes, oh, we're going to pay you. So things have changed.
That whole component of that exposure, and think about what Brylan just shared and kind of the power of digital media, where she said, look, I see all the contestants sharing images and photos of where that area is. Again, it's the physicality starts to speak for itself and advertise your rodeo and say,
well, thank you. We work really close with our local marketing district, Visit Estes Park up here. They're actually one of our bigger sponsors. And so they do a great job of helping us position the rodeo, and, came up with the slogan of rodeo with altitude. So that makes all the difference in the world. But the one thing we learned early on with the Wrangler experience was our show really looks good on TV. To your point, you got the backdrops and everything that goes with it. And we actually moved the rodeo start time up about a half hour, I don't know, about 3 or 4 years ago. We went from 7:30 to 7, just so we could capture more natural light in the arena. At the same time, we brought in Greg Westfall, the photographer, and had him here for about 4 years till he retired. And it just made sense, from a marketing point of view, to have more natural light like that. So glad we did it.
And the good thing is that the Cowboy Channel deal, I think, is going to become more and more important as we move here in the next couple of years on how it's really focused on that niche rodeo crowd and expanding it from there, rather than try to go get, the college basketball fan and say, hey, stick around and watch rodeo. Like that just, I think this.
It is incredible. One of the things I'm really, really proud of is my 2-year-old granddaughter, and she turned on Saturday night of a rodeo, she turned 2. And we, made a big deal of it at the rodeo that night and everything. But on the first night, they were home watching the rodeo on Cowboy Channel. And she saw me in the arena during grand entry. So she ran over to the TV and said, hi, Papa. Mm-hmm. And so that was kind of cool that, she recognized that through the TV. So
NFR Extra with our guest, Mark Purdy, chairman of Rooftop Rodeo. After the break, we'll wrap up our conversation.
Looking for tickets to the Wrangler National Finals Rodeo? StubHub is the official secondary and fan-to-fan site of the rodeo. Fans can buy and sell their tickets through a safe and secure online marketplace. Visit nfrexperience.com.
The Yeti Junior World Finals is back in Vegas. From December 2nd through 11th, the next generation of rodeo stars will compete at the Cowboy Channel Cowboy Christmas, held daily inside the Wrangler Rodeo Arena. Visit nfrexperience.com for details.
This is National Finals Rodeo announcer Roger Mooney from LJ, Georgia, saying I'm all ready for NFR Extra.
NFR Extra with Mark Purdy.
How did you get into the Western heritage way of life, Mark?
In my case, I was drug into it, kicking and screaming by my then 12-year-old daughter back in, 2001 or 2. She wanted to be a rodeo queen. And when she was real little, we had taken her to a rodeo when we first moved here in the 90s. And she came home and said, "Dad, I want to be that girl that rides the horse in the sparkly shirt." And I said, "Well, we'll figure that out." And so then when she was like 12, she was this kid that couldn't stand in front of the 5th grade class and give a book report. And then after about 4 years in our local program, try to sit her down and shut her up, and that's not going to happen. And so she went from there. She went on to become Rooftop Rodeo queen. 3 or 4 years later, she was Miss Rodeo Colorado. So she took a year off from college doing that, and then she came out to Vegas and competed for Miss Rodeo America. So that's how I got into it. I've been a rock climber my entire adult life, and it always amazes me how the contestants and rock climbers have a lot in common. A lot of them drive to the next event together. They kind of live hand to mouth when they have to, but they're always helping each other. Even though you're competing, you're helping each other, and that's what drew me to the sport. And then when I got involved with the board side of the Rooftop, it was kind of our family way of thanking back the Rooftop Rodeo for everything they did for my kids. My son was in what they called a Wrangler program for about 4 years too. So it's just a huge family event. And that's what attracts a lot of people to the sport of rodeo, I believe. And then on the Western lifestyle part of it, a lot of things I just brought up, riding, rock climbing, and so forth. There's just a value I think more and more people are craving right now. Especially people, I had clients come out years ago from Connecticut. They'd never been, this side of the Mississippi, I don't think. And they were just blown away by the rodeo. So it's just fun to have people experience for the first time.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That the rock climbing and kind of the rodeo cowboy deal, and you can say committees as well. It's interesting because it's such an individual sport that when you see somebody high up there, there's admiration to, oh man, I want to do that, or I want to be there. But the preparation that it takes, if you're a contestant or if you're a committee and all that hard work, when you're on top, everybody wants to be there, but seldom people want to strap on the boots or spurs or chalk bag or whatever it is that you're doing and risk all that goes up there. So, with high risk, there's high reward, but also, man, you slip, you're falling.
Well, and that's a great analogy. And I've got a like a framed photo in my office, and it's that saying, "The man on top of the world didn't fall there." And, that's the honest to God truth. Everybody had to climb to get up to wherever they're at today. And I think people tend to forget that a little bit, but that's the cool thing about, watching a lot of these younger contestants come up and then turn into something really big time. I remember, Taos Muncie and some of those other folks, Cody, all those guys came through here at one point, and, they were a car full of 6 people or a pickup or whatever. And, look at them today. We had Trevor up here a couple times. We never had him up here before, but after Cervi's came and we raised our money, he came a couple times, and that was just an incredible thing too. I used to joke with people, since we have so many first-time rodeo people in our crowd, that they don't really know if it's Trevor Brazil or some circuit cowboy that just started a week ago. Well, come to find out they do. When we announced he was going to be here, like on a Thursday night, I had so many calls from sponsors for extra tickets. It was just crazy. So it does make a difference.
The other thing too, and for those that, I know Steve probably been down there, but when you go up in Colorado in the summertime, you don't deal with like mosquitoes like if you were to go down towards like the Midwest area and things like that. Like it's all, Steve, you live in this world.
Well, I grew up in Iowa, and I know all about mosquitoes and humidity and 100-degree heat and 95% humidity and all that. And then I remember the first night we moved out here in '95, and we were watching the Denver TV station, and they said relative humidity was 8%. My wife goes, "How can you even measure 8%?" We've never, in 25 years of living here, we've never had a house with air conditioning, and we leave our doors open all the time. I built a house about 20 years ago, and the contractor says, "Well, you want to put in a security system?" And so I never locked my door, so it probably wouldn't make any sense to do that. That's just kind of the way we live.
Yeah, that's an amazing area. The other thing it's also known for, right? For all those horror movie fans out there, is the Stanley Hotel, correct? Does that ever play out into you guys with Jack Nicholson and The Shining or anything like that?
trust me, the Stanley does a great job of keeping that mythology alive. They've been a good sponsor of ours for a long time. In fact, F.O. Stanley, the guy that started it back in 1905, he's the one that actually donated hundreds of acres to the town of Estes Park for $1, which is where our arena sits at it. And the caveat was it had to stay equestrian. So that's how we got started there. But yeah, going back to the hotel, I don't know if you ever heard the story about, how Stephen King came up with it. He had written a few books. The movie Carrie came out, and he had, success, but he didn't have an idea for a new book, and he was living in Boulder. So his wife said, just get lost in the mountains for a week. So he drove around, stopped at the Stanley, and within 2 days, he had this vision of it being a haunted house or a haunted hotel, and that's how it got started. They do a great job of keeping that going. I don't know if you guys remember, late 90s, I think it was, Stephen King actually came back out here and redid the movie for TV. It was a 6-hour, 3-night redo of it. And it was a lot truer to the book. If you read the book, there was always this question of, was the house haunted, or was Jack Nicholson's character just an alcoholic having these, visions and stuff? And then the movie really did a good job of depicting that. But here's another fun little tidbit about the Stanley. About 4 or 5 years ago, they wanted to become a 5-star hotel, and they did research and found out that every 5-star hotel's got an incredible bar. And so their bar today has over 1,200 bottles on it, which is just incredible.
I've got some great book ideas myself. I might have to come up there and try to write one.
There you go. Well, it sounds like you need to come up.
Yeah, I'm not coming till February though. So.
Well, there you go. We'll find things to do. I indicated earlier we've got 4 or 5 million visitors every year for Rocky Mountain National Park, but we're really only a town of 6,000 people. So between late October to April, we kind of own this place, and it's pretty cool to have Rocky Mountain National Park 2 miles out your back door.
Mark, this was awesome, man. I thank you for coming on. I'm glad you had a successful rodeo, and things seem to be looking on the up and up for the rodeo business and the whole universe for that matter. And we really appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
it's a great industry to be involved with, and we're just happy to do it. And I really appreciate you folks taking some time to talk to us about it, because anytime we can talk about the rooftop, I'm all in. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you, sir. God bless, man.
Yeah. When you make it to Colorado, give us a call. I'll take you to the Stanley and buy you something brown.
Yeah.
Man. Well, thank you, Mark.
That's awesome. Yeah. Great. Thanks for your time, Mark.
You bet. Thank you, folks.
All right, Desperados, last call.
I haven't been this excited for 21 since I myself was 20 because all of this just...
It is last call. The only problem is we're sober.
Exactly. Let's do this.
All right.
I'm sweating like I'm in a tropical place, so I might as well have a tropical drink.
Let's try tropical sangria. You mess with the bull, you get the horns.
Here's to it.
Ooh. Why didn't we wear bathing suits for this segment?
Well, you know how I said I don't drink out of straws?
Uh-huh.
This is a drink out of your straw drink.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's you get the Malibu and the pineapple
So
in there.
Are you in bathing suit shape?
Oh yeah.
You are?
Yeah. Don't let this. I don't have a dad bod. I'm a father figure. Okay?
You don't?
No.
Wait, hold on. That's a double entendre. Do you have a dad bod, or are you a father figure?
I'm
Are you
a
a
father
figure
figure.
of a father or a father figure?
However you want to take it.
All right.
So that libation makes you feel good.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of hard not to smile.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You laugh, you lose.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We're gonna go there right now.
Okay.
Rapid fire though.
You or me?
Right?
Yep. I'm afraid for the calendar. Its days are numbered. How are you going to laugh on the first one? What's... Is that the tri-tip sandwich? Take a sip.
I didn't laugh.
Yes. Yes, you did.
I have allergies.
Is that it? These high desert.
I'm allergic to
Is
hangovers.
the altitude?
Yeah.
Okay.
What does a bee use to brush its hair?
I don't know.
Honeycomb.
What do you call a fish wearing a bow tie? Sophisticated. So I did that wrong. It's sophisticated.
Drink up.
Okay. All right.
You might as well hold that glass. How do you make a tissue dance?
I don't know.
You put a little boogie in it. Huh?
Dean gave me the point on that one. So, if April showers bring May flowers, then what do May flowers bring?
I don't know.
Pilgrims. Oh, the point I just won, I gave right back. That was good.
Why did the math book look so sad?
I don't know.
Because of all its problems.
That hit close to home, didn't it? Why couldn't the bicycle stand up by itself?
I don't know.
It was too tired.
You're better than that.
I know. I'm sorry.
I mean, as a human.
No, I get it. I get it.
You're better than that.
I'm sorry.
All right.
Move along.
What do you call cheese that is not yours?
I don't know.
Nacho cheese.
Oh, that's a goodie. That's a goodie. Why can't a nose be 12 inches long? Because then it would be a foot. Oh God.
A foot.
You know, 12 inches. Does anybody have a defibrillator? Oh my God. I don't know if I'm going to make it. Oh, I think we have one more. I think there's one more. I'm scared.
What shoes do
What was that? Can you do it again, please?
What kind of shoes do ninjas wear?
I don't know.
Sneakers.
I was gonna say kicks. Okay. Oh, I'm embarrassing my family. What does a lemon say when it answers the phone? Yellow. Oh my gosh. Oh, seriously, the defibrillator, like it would help any moment now.
Tropical sangria, thank you.
Take me to an island, quickly.
And that's last call. We got to get out of here.
See you guys.
We want to give a big thank you to Mark Purdy for hanging out with us on NFR Extra.
Want to experience more of NFR? Then visit nfrexperience.com. And we invite you to subscribe to NFR Extra on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you're listening right now. If you like what you've heard on NFR Extra, we would love it if you gave us a big 5-star rating and tell your friends how to subscribe.
NFR Extra.
All dirt.
All rodeo.
All year.
Gotta make it out to Vegas, where the big boys roam, with the rovers and the racers and the bulls and the broncs, and the ladies in the skin-tight wranglers and the cowboy